Overview, let me start now. Good morning, friends, and welcome to the webinar on forecasting for supply management. Normally, people come and ask me, Krishan, the forecasting is mainly for deciding what is going to be the future demand. I certainly agree with that. And this tool was used more effectively by sales and marketing people to decide the future requirements. This was very true till we were using the push system. Now more and more companies are moving into the pull system. So when you're using the pull system, deciding the demand, sometimes very difficult for the marketing people. So based on the pull system and increased globalizations, supply management people are equally involved in using this tool. They use this tool basically for three things. One, how is going to be the price trend? Let's say I'm working with a company and I've been buying some parts. What is going to be the trend of the prices for those items? Because that is going to ultimately affect the product of the company. So I have to really see the market trend of the prices. They may depend on commodity, they may depend on the labor cost, they may depend on many parameters. Then I'm also interested, there might be a possibility that there are a few other competitors have come up. They're also using my suppliers. Whether my suppliers have enough capacity to provide me. So with that part, I would say it becomes important that I should know around what is the capacity, how much I'm going to use is, how my competitors are using around. So you can imagine that as a supply manager, even as a procurement manager, I need to know the status of the market. So I have to do the market analysis. I have to forecast it. Who are the new suppliers which has come into the market around? And third thing is also I want to also assess the quantity part. Last year I made so many pieces of this, so many pieces of that. How much is going to be the quantity? I know that is relevant for the marketing people as well as supply management people. So this subject is becoming more and more popular with the increased globalizations. And I will also say with more focus on e-supply chain management. When we're going into e-commerce is more of a pull system. So with the e-commerce, with the pull system, the subject of forecasting for supply manager becomes very crucial around. And we are working with few companies in Bangalore who are dealing with e-commerce. So most of the supply manager people are very actively involved in working out what is going to be my supply chain in the next 1 month, next 15 days. So they work very actively on this. Well, friend, with this background, let me start now what I plan to cover up. So the learning objectives for the today's are, why do supply manager forecast? I've given you a small overview of that, but I'll go into more depth. The forecasting process. What is the process of forecasting? Analyze and provide data on current and future market conditions because they affect your all of activities, whether it's a sales, whether it's a production, whether even as a procurement wise, how much is going to be the capacity utilization of my suppliers. All this factor goes into that. Then the next is I have to develop the supply forecast in light of economic, competitive technologies. Sometimes new technology comes up, new suppliers comes up, currency becomes weaker or stronger. They affect my prices. And the last is, how do I manage the forecasted data? I've done the forecasting. How do I manage it with suppliers? So in short, I would say for today's focus would be on to understand the market and the factors. Factors, I said to you, could be technology factor, could be currency factors, could be market analysis. The market is becoming changing, like you see in the oil industry nowadays. Which could cause change in the market in order to develop realistic forecasts. So if I have to develop the forecast, I have to know how this market is going to affect me. Let's come to the introduction to forecasting. Now, when we talk of forecasting, the primary function is to predict the future. It's like a crystal ball. But keep in mind, forecasting are not supposed, I mean, how much accuracy, inaccuracy depends how much depth we have gone into this. Next comes, why are we interested into this? Obviously, it affects our decisions. If I am a supply manager, my decisions are affected in terms of my pricing. If the commodity prices goes up, the parts which I'm buying, the price could go up. If commodity price goes down, that could affect some of the company. Let's say oil prices goes down. Some of the parts I'm using are plastic, like in an automobile company, the dashboard. Obviously, the price will go down. If oil price goes up, my price goes up. So those affects my supply chain. So that's why I'm interested in this. The next comes, where is forecasting used in SCM? First thing is to forecast the demand of the product and services. We want to see if the demand has picked up, but the suppliers are very few. So naturally, it's a question of balancing act between the demand and supply. The next comes the forecast availability part. Let's say last year I was buying parts and the companies were, from where I was buying, they were using only 60% of their capacity. But today everybody using 100% of their capacity. So certainly that item is going to be scarce. Price is going to be shoot up. So it's again demand and supply issues around. So I have to understand that market. Third is the forecast inventory. If I see the market is very volatile, I'm dealing with, let's say, 1,000 items around. For some products, the market is very volatile. It was not so last year, but this has become volatile this year. I would like to keep more buffer stock so that there is no disruption to my supply chain. So as a supply chain manager, I have to ensure there's no disruptions. Obviously, the prices should not go up. On the contrary, if I can cut down my cost, I could become leaner. That's more better. Next comes, why do supply manager forecast again? I think I've already clarified some part. The price forecasting, quantity forecasting, and last is availability part. Availability is purely linked with volatility of the market, utilization of the suppliers around. That's how it is there. Need to forecast. As I said in the beginning, the change are happening around. If the word would have been stable, then yes, not a big issue. Then we don't need to make a forecast. We can say, oh, last year we bought this much, population has grown by 5%, 10%, everything grows by 5 or 10%. But the change is happening around, and change is very drastic. I might be selling a particular model of a phone, mobile phone last year's, and I did big business, but suddenly some new competitor comes up and that business drops down. Then I have to think of a new one. So change is happening very often. And that means change means I have to do the forecast. So first thing is a technology change. This is happening very fast. New products are coming around, new ideas are coming around, new apps are coming around. So once any product comes with the new apps, new ideas, new look, new feel, certainly that overpowers the previous products around. We need forecast for the annual basis as well as for the long-term basis. If I have to put resources, and if I have to set up a good I have to put investment into some warehousing, I have to make a long-term plan. I have to see how it's going to be the market in the next 5 years, next 10 years. Or even just like we're talking of GST, people talk of GST, that affects me and the supply chain as a person. If I'm a supply chain manager and say, okay, the GST comes, what type of warehouse I need? Where do I need? So those long-term plan, I need to do it forecast around. Population demographic is changing. It could be a gender issue, it could be taste issues, could be needs issues, could be the population is becoming more to the middle class, the number of poor people is going down, and people are becoming more and more middle class, or more money is flowing into the hands of the people. So that all affects my market around. Laws may affect availability. Sometimes laws comes up, guys, oh, these are luxury items. The taxes are going to be increased around. the duty is going to be 30%, or these are items are banned around. So those also affect your market. There could be a war, there could be threats, strikes, disasters. To cope up with all this, we need a forecast. So I just can't base my requirement, base my production plan, or base my marketing plan based on last year's. I have to look into these parameters as well. The next comes supply chain security. Last year, let's say my supply chain was very comfortable, went very well. But suddenly some bad elements have come up around, some terrorist activities are there around. I have to ensure that no disruption happens. So naturally, my plans changes. And then global economic conditions. So world is globally integrated nowadays. Whatever I make, some part of this I'm exporting abroad. If global economic conditions are going downward, so naturally I'm not able to cope up. That means I'm producing more, I'm producing less, depends on the case. If the demand shoots up, I'm not able to cope up. To match up that, I have to do a good forecast for that. Coming back to the forecasting processes. Now the processes are basically three. We call as qualitative. Qualitative means there's no past data available. You come up into the market with a new product and you are the supply chain manager. You have no past data at all. And if I have to collect the data, it's too costly. I go in a qualitative way. Then next method comes the quantitative way. If I have the past data available with me, I have a time series available with me, I know the past trends around. So based on the past trend, I can forecast what is going to happen this year and next year. But the accuracy is only for a short run. Keep that factor in mind. The next one comes the causal part. Causal means you're able to build the relationship. The cause and effect. We all know very well. If I do this, what will be the impact of this? If you're able to build up the relationship between the two parameters, or if there are 7 or 8 parameters which affects the demand, if I can build up the causal relationship, if that relation is there is equal to y is equal to a plus bx plus cx, if I can mention all those relationships, certainly it becomes a mathematical model. So that could be also used. Now let's talk about the very first issues is understand the issues of economics. Because these factors, knowledge is very important around. If I am dealing with the supply chain, firstly I have to understand the type of economies. If most of my business is based within my country or in a neighboring country, I have to understand, or even globally, I have to understand the type of economies where I'm dealing with the business. Is it centralized? If the prices are determined administratively, locally, only one centrally, that's a one type of economy. Second is a price free enterprise. So it's basically market decide the price. It's a demand supply issues decide the price. And the consumers are free to decide what to buy. There's no force that you have to get one model. You may have many choices around. You can buy whichever model, whichever product you want to buy. Pure market economy. Although there are not many in the pure. Pure means most economies have some form of restriction. That means no restriction at all. Anybody can sell wherever the product is good. Anybody can provide the goods around. So understand that part as well. Closed economies. As you know, in the past we had some countries like Cuba, North Korea still. They're very closed economies. Even Russia was in good old days, was a closed economy. Mixed economy, I would say there is somewhat state-owned, somewhat private enterprises. So we also went through, India is also falling under the mixed economies concept, and many other countries follow that. Sometimes they want to protect their own industries, plus they also want openness, open competition with others. Let's understand the second elements around, the global markets around. The world is becoming globalized. Many and more people, I think today around 125 countries are member of World Trade Organizations. So once you become the members, you are freely able to export in those countries around. There are few forms of protectionism. The objective of WTO is to increase global trade, cut down the protectionism. In the process, people are able to get cost-effective products, cut down the embargoes, quotas, tariff, all government subsidies around. That's the way the global market is around. Many nations have economic advantage in certain commodities, like Saudi Arabia is on the oil side, Canada is on the timber side, Zimbabwe is on the chrome side, South Africa is natural industrial diamonds, So those global market, I think, affects a lot. So when you're buying goods from those places, you know very well this is the best place to buy from them. Business cycles and trends. I think this is also important to know as a supply chain manager. What type of economy is going through? Is it going through recession? Is it going through growth? All of you know of 2008, what happened in the US. There was a recession period. It went on for a few years around. Then we got out of that. Technically, if you look around, every country goes through the swings. There's none with the same flat things around. India also, we have gone through many phases around. So if you look at the business cycle at the country level, you'll find highest point of output. Before a downturn, then the recession comes in, shrinking of economy happens. Then you have a recession trough. And after a recession trough, then you start recovering it, then starts expanding. So keep in mind, no two business cycles are same in terms of intensity and duration. Some may be for a longer period, some may be for a short period. But these are affected with the global condition and local situation as well. Transportation trend. These also helps you to understand where the economy is going. If most of my things are done locally, if I'm using with trucks and this, I'm using very less of multimodal transportation. When we talk of multimodal means technically various modes of transports are being used around. Goods are coming globally from outside and going outside as well. So both inward logistic and outward logistics both are multimodal. That means becoming very global. So that means there's a growth of international trade growth. Export import goes up. The growth through expansion and acquisition of logistics service provider. This also helps a lot. I know we are dealing with some of the company in pharma and auto companies. They're looking very actively around 3PL providers, 4PL providers. So that indicates that the growth is happening in those sectors around. So need for better logistical planning and deployment of multimodal systems, services. So this gives you also some ideas what's happening in the transport business. Now again, let me again try to link up with supply chain person. If I'm a supply chain person, I'm working with a big automobile company, a big pharma company, a big e-commerce. If the business is growing on the auto side, I will be short of those capacities around. So I have to see what is the capacity, what is the growth. If one company's growth is 20%, while the transportation market is only growing by 5%, it is going to affect someone's. So you have to see how it is going to affect your business. Let me take economic indicators around. Economic indicators are three basically. We call them as, one is leading ones, second is lagging ones, third is coincident ones. Lagging means, again I have tried to clarify, economic activity that happens prior to a change in economic cycle. Some activity happens before that. Some activity happens after that. Let's say the economy is leading it. If economy is leading and we say the growth is going to happen, public mood is wonderful, how it is going to affect the supply chain? Similarly, when we saw economy is going downward, like we hear about the global, the China or other countries around. If it is going downward, it's contracting, What does it mean as a supply chain manager to me? Similarly, if I say the economy is coincident, what does it mean to supply chain manager? So this is where I'm going to touch about those three indicators. So please try to understand all the three indicators, how they help you. You can see those three indicators leading. If the economy is already there, guys, we're going to grow. This year we're going to do 7.5% or 8%, depending if the GST gets approved. Leading is obviously the stock prices goes up. Construction contract awards goes up, assuming that the leading in the area of construction as well, the construction contract awards will be more. Stock prices will go up. More and more purchase orders will be there. That are the indicators. Those are the activities which leads along with the leading. If it's a leading, those activities will go up. Similarly, if the country's economy is lagging, we're going downward. Interest rate could go up and down. This is where I will leave it to you. I think we'll have a poll question. If the economy is going down, that means less money available. So interest rate may have to be cut down. But if the economy is leading it, that means more funds are coming in, more money is coming into the pipeline. With the more money coming into the pipeline, people buying power also goes up. So you may have to increase the interest rates around so that they don't buy, they don't take more loan around. Coincidence ones, total sales goes up, total production goes up, goes hands in hand. So it is not coming up forward or backward. Some indicators lag, go after the activity. Some are coincidence around. Another report which ISM prepared, we call report on business. Those who are member of ISM, they must have seen, we are sending the reports. There's one called PMI, Purchasing Manager Index. And this was developed in 1923 by ISM. Now this is the concept used in every country around. In India also PMI reports comes up in the first week of every month, which gives you a wonderful idea whether the manufacturing or non-manufacturing, the index are available for both, for manufacturing and non-manufacturing. So we collect the data from a survey-based, collect the data from some big companies around. Then we say, okay, the manufacturing is going up or down. The benchmark is 50. If the number of PMI for the manufacturing index comes 52, we'll say it is going up. Comparing again with the previous month. Say in the month of April was 51, let's say in May it becomes 52, it shows a positive gain. But if it becomes 50, from 51 to 50, that means the manufacturing has dipped down. Same way we have for the non-manufacturing. So that shows more the procurement people buy. Obviously, as you and me do at home, if we get more salary, we spend more money. Same way with the companies. If companies are growing, the market is growing, procurement people are going to buy more and more items. One should not forget in most of the big companies, 70% of the sales revenue can be attributed to procurement or to supply chain activities. So that means more they buy, the company is doing very well. If they buy less, the company is going through tough time. Next come the government policies. These factors also affects to the supply chain managers in terms of new laws which are coming around. Very important, as you see in India, is GST. If GST comes, if I'm in the supply chain business, particularly the e-commerce, it's going to affect a big way to me. Adds an element of risk to forecast. Supply management professional must understand the government restriction regulation laws, so that once I know restriction regulation, whatever they come forward, I can plan for the future. Another thing comes the migration part. Industrial migrations. I'll say more in the Europe it used to be. Countries differ in labors, inflations, interest rates, currency rates. Differences cause shift in manufacturing. Obviously, as you've seen, people are moving to the low-cost countries around. In the last 25, 30 years, a lot of manufacturing has moved to China, being a low-cost country. And then for ease of doing business also. India also, it has moved more on the service side, but not on the manufacturing side. So if the way of producing is better, that's what the government of India is doing around with the Make in India to make it better, to do the business better, early, quicker. That's what we're looking around. Import-export issues around. So I'm not touching this much more, but these factors do count for the supply chain people. If I'm becoming globalization, I say, okay, let me, instead of buying locally, let me go abroad and let's buy from there. The price may be cheaper, but then at the end of the day, I have to look around my total cost of ownership. So those issues also have to look around. Have some changes happened this year? If those are going to impact my prices, that's what I need to do. Environmental issues. In some countries, they are very, very important around. People are very particular. This is going to be green. The supply chain has to be green. Whatever activities I do in the supply chain, they do leave some carbon footprints. How do I get rid of those carbon footprints? How do I cut down, improve my activities around, make it more greener around? Then come the market analysis. This is very important. So far, we have understood the indicators. So far, we understood all economic issues which could affect the supply chain. Next issue is about the market part. If I'm in the supply chain, I have to understand how is my market changing around. The most popular one is the Porter's five forces of competition. How people perceive me, how the buyers perceive me, what is the power of the buyer, how is the power of the supplier, how is the new products coming in the market around, new substitute coming around, who are the other competitors in the business around. So that's what we look at the Porter's five forces. The next one we look at the SWOT is strength, weakness, opportunity, threats. You also try to see the benchmarking. If I feel I'm doing a great job, but one should not forget survival of the fittest. So I have to see the benchmark in a globalized world. I have to see the industry benchmark, how others are doing in that respect. If my costs are higher, let's say I'm in an automobile business, I come with a new design. Let's say Japan takes 5 months to come with a new model. If in my country takes 1 year, I'm going to be loser. They come with a new brand. In 6 months, I take 2 years, I'm going to be loser. So you have to see your benchmarks. How do you compare with others around, those whom you're competing? Sometimes we can collect this information through RFI basis from suppliers. You can do supplier research, how suppliers are perceiving it in terms of the trends. Now to do all this, we got all the, you can say economic data, we got other data around, but then we need analytical skill and financial skill to use them. So you certainly need knowledge and areas including what type of prices indexes are there. Economic indicators we talked about. Forecasting models we talked about. And so these skills are very, very important for the supply chain people. First to understand, identify these indicators, work out the economic activities which is happening around, which could affect your business, your supply chain. But the bottom line for this is to minimize the risk. If not caring for them, if I'm ignoring them, I could lead into risk around. So if you want to mitigate your risk, you want to minimize your risk, I think you have to understand those around. This will also help you to maximize your opportunities and evaluate innovation technology. You might be stuck with one product, but that product is becoming obsolete in terms of technologies. But new product has come up around. So those innovation technology you need to evaluate around. Next come economic concepts and terms used in forecasting. So when we do the forecasting, again I'm talking of forecasting for supply managers. So we also need to know the price index. So price index is a relationship between the price of the commodity at any time during a specified base period. So this information can be used to chart price level change. How much is this one? Say if we say 2010, the base price was this much. So what is my price today? It was 100, today it is 105. So you have the base price. It gives you price index that you have moved up or you have moved down. Then we have producer price index around PPI. CPI you all know very well. We have a basket of goods around in different countries, different metropolitan cities. We do the studies around. Then we come up whether the CPI is going up or down. Then we have price deflators. So to eliminate the inflation related price changes, the GDP can be used this around. So you may say, guys, oh, my prices are going up, and you can say boost up the GDP. But then GDP deflators are also used for this purpose. Interest rates, you know very well when you borrow the money, you're paying the interest around, and this interest rate could fluctuate. Obviously, lenders' willingness to postpone use of money, lenders' willingness to assume risk, and this also depends whether the country's economy is going forward or downward. If economy is going upward, it's a different case. If it's going downward, then obviously you have to cut down the inflation part, so your rate will be different. So these indicators which I told you in the beginning, so if an economy is maybe going up or down, then that could be motivated either through the leading indicators, lagging indicators, and coincident. I touched this point earlier as well. So in the case of leading indicators would be the stock market. They'll tell you if stock market is going up, that means the economy is doing well. So that's the leading one. That gives you upfront face of it, guys. Okay, stock is going well. The bond yields are better. But if the stock is going down, then it shows the economy may be dipping down. The lagging is unemployment rate. If economy is going forward very well, employers will not hire the people immediately. So that means the employment will happen only after they are sure that this next year I'm going to do a good job, the market is strong, then they will hire the people. So unemployment and everything is a lagging factor. It's a lagging indicator. Coincident is the other ones around which goes parallelly. So when the economy goes up and down, accordingly these factor goes up. If the economy is going up, obviously your industrial product index will go up, manufacturing sales will go up. If economy is going down, they go at the same time. So that means leading, which comes forward, which gives you some idea about the economy is going forward and backward. Lagging, which happens later on. Coming to inflation and deflation, a loss of purchasing power caused by increasing prices. Obviously, we all have a fixed incomes, same way we have a fixed budget in the companies around. If the prices goes up, then certainly a loss of purchasing powers. But if the prices goes down, the deflation, your buying power goes up. Now the capacity utilization is also important around. To what extent the company is able to use its resources. It could be the machinery, could be the people. Say companies have installed capacity of making 1 million cars. But if they're making only 500,000 cars, that means 50% is not being utilized. So obviously the cost of production goes up. But if it is utilized fully, the cost of production goes down. So once it goes down, you are able to get those goods if you're buying for your company, for your supply chain at a much lower price. Another comes economic indexing. We try to compare the various factors to how much we are paying for these various parameters around variable interest for the mortgages, social security payments, union wage contracts, certificate of deposits, and interest bonds around, and treasury bill. GDP, you all know the definition. I don't need to go into the definition of this. So there's a GDP definition, there's a GNP. So I would expect that all supply chain people, all supply managers know about this definition. The balance of trade, obviously you have exports, you have imports, so you want to see is a trade is a deficit or on the plus side. The balance of payments and the exchange rates. Exchange rate certainly affects in a big way to the supply chain people. Many of the parts we are buying from outside. So once the parts are coming from outside, the components coming from outside, the raw material coming from outside, even assembled goods are coming from outside. So naturally, when your own currency becomes weaker in comparison to from where you are importing, so to the local person, you have to pay more money. So the local person, when they buy it, they have to pay in local currency much more. So exchange rate makes a big difference. And this is where sometimes we try to use the concept of hedging it to mitigate our risk because of the currency loss or currency gain. Sources of data used in forecastings. The data from where we get these data around is obviously the ISM report on business is available. And I told you, we share it. It's available on ISM website as well. Then we have a Wall Street Journal, the Business Week, even Indian's Economic Times. So these data are available, Financial Times, so these information are available now. Then there are commercial forecasts available, regional surveys, international historical, and various magazines, various articles. UN does it, OECD does it, even the World Bank does it, IMF gives you, country by country forecasts are available. Now coming back to the methods of and methodology for doing all the forecasting. So certainly one is a short term, one is a long term basis. So when we say short term mean up to 1 year, long term mean more than a year, Janab. So now I'll walk through with you the methodology part. So the macro level and the micro level. So now the methods which we're using around is Delphi methods. So this method is used that we have a panel of experts, and not that they are sitting together, we send them the informations request. Everybody provides us the input and writing to down, and then we come up with the prediction of the future environmental condition. What is going to happen? Next one is the regression analysis. So it's basically trying to build up a relationship between the various parameters. We develop a correlation. It's more like a mathematical model. And then we are able to say, okay, guys, if this changes, what is going to be the impact of this? So we are able to put all the parameters, all the variables, and the impact of all those into one equation around. Now, trying to compare all these ones. One is executive opinion. You have your own managers, your own experts. You take an executive opinion around. If you're trying to come up with a new product, certainly that's a plus point they can do. But then what happens in a management, in your own company sometime, depending on the position of the person, one guy may dominate everything. So in the process, you may not get the honest forecast around. Another could be the market research that we do, the surveys, we try to collect the data, what is going to happen for that product around. And the Delphi is the one we seek to develop a consensus among a group of experts. So those are the experts available on various products, various categories. I think this is wonderful forecasting for long-term product demand, time consuming, but develops a lot. I mean, in India also is picking up, wide range of categories are there around. If you're dealing in e-commerce or any products around telecommunications, mobile phones, TV, whichever sector you may talk around, there are experts available around. They can tell you guys, this is how the market is moving in this. What type of new features are required around? What new products are required? What new specs are required? They can tell you whether your product will be really fly or not. I mean, that's the way it is there around. So they give you wonderful ideas on that matter. Another one is the time series methods. Time series is very basic. I think all of you know very well. We have a data by, if I take on the x-axis, the years and years, or month by month, and on the y-axis is impact of those around. What have been the trend in the past? So based on that, I can draw my future patterns. What is going to happen? What are the tendency of this one? Where is the variability is around? How much is the variability in the forecast? So time series is one way. Then there are data which are cyclic. I'm sure you must have seen they move in a cycle form. But we try to put a straight line, but the data which we get around, if you really join them, they're very cyclic. So those cyclic could be there for many reasons. They could be sometimes economic reasons, sometimes could be business reasons. So we try to analyze the whole trend per se. Now the factors which can affect the forecast, I think I touched earlier also: war, threats, strikes, natural factors. If technology is changing around, government is coming with more restrictive approach because their balance of trade is poor, not in the favor of the country, then certainly they'll try to put more restrictions, more tariffs on the import part. So law could also make a big difference. Then the population part, what type of population demographic is changing around. If you're coming with more smart cities, the population is moving from poverty to middle class, that affects the whole supply chain, I would say. Consumer taste. So demographic also affects the consumer taste as well. Another critical item to consider the track factor is fluctuating lead time. The lead time might be changing. It's not stable. The reasons could be manifold. Could be infrastructures, could be raw material availability, could be strikes, could be many reasons around. Changing labor conditions, changes in the money markets. Are we having surplus funds for the foreign exchange or less funds? All those factors may affect. Political factors. It depends on the governance at the government level, technological shifts, and climatic conditions and changes global. So technological shift also makes a big difference around, let's say you are in an automobile business and you're used to this engines running with diesel and petrols, and then we find battery operated car like Tesla is coming around, they're becoming the craze. So naturally your product will start losing the market and they become the future market. So you have to keep in mind as a supply chain manager how much stock to keep and what is the life of these products. You have to understand. Now next come manage the forecasted data with suppliers. You have the forecasted data. You have understood the market. Economy is moving this way. These are the trends. These are the new technologies. Now, how do I deal with my supplier? That is information we have as a mother company. But if I involve the suppliers also as a part of it, because you know very well, supply chain is all about integration. Supply chain is all about collaboration, working with suppliers. Suppliers, even tier 1, tier 2, it can go up to tier 3 even around. So how early we can involve the suppliers? So when I'm making a product, when I'm trying to market it, if I can involve the suppliers up front, possibly they can give us a wonderful idea in helping us to make it a cost-effective product, making a better design, or using a better technologies. Business forecasting models, we can share with them how we are doing the forecasting. Because at the end of the day, it's a chain. Look at the company and more from the e-commerce, if I look around, I'm doing my forecast. But at the end of the day, who's going to provide me those items? My supplier. Supplier. So they have to be also part of my forecasting models. Then the confidentiality issues with whomever we work, whichever suppliers we work, we need to sign the sign of non-disclosure agreement, confidential issues, parameters for disclosure, what information can be disclosed. Legal implication, if someone is not following the guidelines, you make the agreement but still information is going out, what could be the legal implication? The next comes supplier managed inventories. So supplier manages inventory at your premises. At no cost to you, but they manage it. They replenish it whenever the stock goes below minimum level. The next comes the collaborative planning. It's a new concept. I'll touch a little more in detail. Product life cycles. Then we have information exchange to pass the information from supplier to us, from us to supplier, and from us to customers. So that's the information exchange available. So ESI is a wonderful tool, I would say, that brings together one or more selected suppliers with the buyer's product or with our design team. So before I make a design and then launch it, and supplier telling me, sorry guys, this is going to cost you more. If you want economical price, then you have to work together with us, work with them, and then seek their advice as well. One should not forget, which was not true if I go back 25, 30 years back, where companies are more like a vertically integrated. Everything was done in-house. The guy designs and everything was being made in-house or with my own ancillaries. So I didn't need much of under-supply involvement. Today, 70% of the parts are coming from outside. And it is their technologies. It is their product. So if I'm making any product around, I have to keep in mind what best I can get from the suppliers. Now coming elements of ESIs are obviously the manufacturing process. If I'm going to make the finished product with 70% parts or 80% parts coming from outside, and they are going to make it based on either on my design or their design, so I have to involve them in the manufacturing. It also helps me on the capital acquisition budget as a supply chain manager. If you look from the make or buy, if something I was doing in-house, I outsource it, I save my capital. I don't have to acquire the equipments. Let my supplier acquire it. I save my budget. So one has to look at make or buy, product or service developments, cost part, if I do myself or somebody else does it, availability part. If product is standard, why should I do it? Again, going back to the example of automobile, I'm using an air filter. If somebody can give me a standard design and that fits with me, why should I design the air filter? Somebody can give me the transmission box outside, why should I design it? So this is where it comes around. Technology part, design part, product code development, cycle time. So if any development has to be done with the new design, new products, we have to do along with the suppliers. Because they are the one, they know their product better. They'll happy to tell you guys, okay, if you do these changes, it'll be much faster and quicker and cost effective. We can cut the cycle time. Now next come again the leading indicators. So the indicator which gives you the first signal before you know whether the economy is going up or down. So these indicators give you like stock market we talked about. Examples of indicators include change in number of building permits. If economy is doing well, more construction will go on. More permits will go on. More money supply will go on. And if it is going down, it will be in the downside. Inventory level changes. If economy is going well, now inventory level also could go up and down. If today I am able to sell 1,000 cars, and then when the economy goes up, I'm able to sell 1,200 cars a day, obviously my inventory, if I'm keeping a lead time, let's say of 4 days or 5 days or 1 week, my inventory level also changes. Stock prices changes, number of unemployment, insurance claims, average hours work, staff is very less available, so we request the staff to work overtime. So that's how it goes. And new orders comes in. So these are the indicators which gives you some idea about whether the economy is doing well or bad. Confidentiality issues. ESI require trust between the parties. Keep that factor in mind. Confidential is a big role. If I'm calling the supplier to come and give me and share his knowledge, that information should be kept secret. Parameters for disclosures. So you have some broad guidelines. Main problem is intellectual property. If you're able to protect the intellectual property, then I think it is safer. But if the IPR goes out, intellectual property goes out, I take from the supplier, use it and pass on to some other suppliers who can provide me the same item at economical price, that's not fair, that's unethical. Legal implications. So we have to define into the NDAs which are the proprietary information and how it must be used. And even if there's a dispute, how do we handle it? So these parameters must be spelled out when we're doing this. Supplier managed inventories, as I said to you in the beginning. So suppliers are ensuring that you have the stocks at your place. They replenish the items when these levels drop. Ultimately we're looking at it just in time, but since of the infrastructure, sometimes issues around, they maintain the stock at your place, and then they go on replenishing it depending on when the level comes to the minimum level. This is the CPFR. Here we talk about collaborative planning, forecasting, and replenishment. Now, this is a practice which combines the intelligence of multiple trading parts. So if I'm in a company, I'm planning it. Then I'm trying to fulfill all the requests which are coming from customers. I get a request of 50 cars, 50 mobile phones, 100 TVs. All the requests are coming from the customers. I'm trying to fulfill them. But I'm not doing fulfillment only for mine. My suppliers are also contributing. And if I look at the e-commerce, 100% is coming from suppliers. So naturally, this has to be part of their planning also. So if we have to put down the intelligence of all. So if I'm looking in a manufacturing company, all the suppliers, main suppliers, tier 1 supplier, tier 2 supplier, even the customers, particularly from the, I'm not talking of the consumer. When I say customer, I'm talking up to the retailer and all that. We have to put the intelligence together. So this is what the CPFR talks about. That's a wonderful tool actually, is to connect your knowledge and information, not within your four walls, with outside. The people who provide you from the supply side and the people from the demand side. If that information can be connected, I think that will make much better. You will have less inventories, you'll make the system much leaner. That's how it is there. Another thing you know very well, each product has a cycle. Like human being, they also have a life cycle. Nothing is lifetime. Every product goes through a design. After design, we introduce into the market. Suddenly it clicks. It goes upway, growth. But then after a few years or a few months, depending on the product, if you're thinking in the mobile industries, maybe 6 months, it reaches the maturity level. If you're looking in an automobile, maybe in 3 years, 4 years, maturity level, then it start declining again. So during the maturity, if you're not coming with a new product, your business is going to suffer. So you have to come something new. So then there's a decline part. So keep in mind the cycle of the product starts from design at the end of the day. But if you're depending on 1 or 2 products, it's difficult to survive. If the company wants a longer life, you need to come up with new and more products at the maturity stage. So before it comes to maturity, other products should be available for introduction and growth. Information exchange, certainly. We could have exchange with the suppliers, with the retailers, with whosoever come in the supply chain. We could have face-to-face meetings. We could have virtual meetings the way we are doing today on the webinar. We could have conference calls. We could have emails. We could have web portals. So there are a lot of tools available around to share the information. We could set up an information exchange even. We'll say, guys, okay, here's the information exchange. People can write their issues around, and then somebody gives a reply and provides information to everybody. And that information could be shared with all the partners. Partner mean both from the supplier side and from the buyer side, and as well as on the customer side. The whole chain is connected. And then within the cross-functionally also within the organization, you can't be working in a silos. You need to connect them as well. Because supplier might have a question on design. So the engineering people also has to be part of it. So it's a collective exchange. Well, friend, with this, thank you again for the patient hearing. and take care. Now, before we close, as like last time, we will have three